This is food. This is beans.
Holy baloney! What a goal! What a goal!
Adrian, let's take a closer look at episode 5 now of The Last of Us Season 2 on HBO. What did you think of this episode?
Yeah, Simon, I thought positive things about this episode. Mostly. I think there's a couple of things that stand out that I didn't particularly love. And honestly, I kind of blame you for it because you planted some seeds in my brain last week. And I can't get it out of my head. And it's just been pestering me in my brain. And now I'm overanalyzing it a little bit. But I shouldn't blame you. I think it's you're right. It's me acknowledging your correctness in this. So, but I thought this episode was actually really cool from a set design perspective. I thought it was freaking awesome. Again, like how they can recreate parts of the game and just make it look so good on television is masterful. They do a lot of really cool things. They give us a little bit more context and a little bit more insight into how the scars are, which is pretty cool. I was happy to see that. And again, they do something really, really awesome, which I wish they do more of. And it's giving us kind of a scene that is set ultimately before the events of the game, giving us a little bit more context to the wider world without really kind of changing what's in the game, if that makes sense. They're adding to it. Sorry. They're adding context
to the show, you mean, not to the game, right?
Well,
sorry, or maybe I misunderstand.
Yeah, and I mean, they're adding context to both. Like they're adding scenes that weren't in the game that add context to the world. And I thought that that's really cool. What they're accomplishing there. I think everyone's performances are great. However, again, based on some seeds you planted in my brain, I think Bella Ramsey's performance is a little inconsistent. And the issue is like, I don't know if I should blame her or if I should just totally blame the writing or if it's a little bit of both. And that's what's tough about it. But again, I'm excited to kind of get a little bit deeper into that. What did you think, man?
It does seem like it's the writing. I don't think it's her fault. I think that it's the writing and then the directing based on the writing that's causing this issue that we're talking about very vaguely. So I'll talk more non-spoiler and then we'll maybe get into it after. But the key is for this episode. This episode was directed by Stephen Williams, which I think we had mentioned last week, but that's the director of one of my favorite episodes of TV ever, which is the Watchmen TV show. Director for This Extraordinary Being, which is it is legitimately an incredible episode of TV. If you haven't watched the Watchmen TV watch TV show, watch it. It's
Watchman.
Watchman or woman. Watch. Yeah, that's horrible. That's a horrible joke. Regardless of that, it is very great. Stephen Williams did a great job here, and I think the pacing of this episode in particular is incredible. I think that the way that the action plays into emotional elements and then they kind of feed off of each other, and the way that the episode is almost symmetrical, it's honestly, this is a really great episode of TV. I think Stephen Williams is just following up some, other great episodes of TV. He's done other stuff in the meantime, but This Extraordinary Being stood out to me as like an incredible episode of TV for the Watchmen series. And so it's cool. And he's doing the Lanterns TV series to, not to get too excited about the Lanterns TV series because it's not related to this, but it's another HBO show coming out based on a DC property. Anyway, regardless of that, I thought this was really good. I thought overall, this episode's great. Another episode written by Craig Mazin. There is some weird things about what we were talking about vaguely. I kind of agree with you, but I also feel like they fixed some of the issues that I had, which is interesting because it's the opposite kind of. I feel like I created a disease in your mind, planted a virus, and now I'm kind of maybe turning on that idea. But I really like this episode. And what exactly you said about how they kind of built the set pieces and built the production design and how it mimics the game. There's like one area with like buses. I think you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, wow, it's like in my memory, I remember that distinctly. Yeah. And that's some of the mastery of the production team for sure. And in the way that they did the makeup again and for some of the infected, et cetera, and like the costumes, it's been great. It's been awesome in that regard. So I really, kudos to them. Shout out to the production team. So, okay. Yeah, that's pretty much
cool.
all I've got. So let's move on. Let's move on now, Adrian, to the spoiler half of this A Closer Look episode, where we just dive into spoilers. So if you haven't watched episode 5 of season 2 of The Last of Us, Feel Her Love is what it's called. You should probably turn away now because we're about to spoil the heck out of it. Adrian, what did you think of this episode from a spoiler perspective?
Yeah, I thought there was some really like powerful scenes, most notably very early in the episode where Ellie is walking down the theater aisle and she picks up the guitar and starts singing Pearl Jam. Immediately emotional. Like I almost started crying right away as soon as that scene started happening. That song resonates so much because it's so integral to the video game itself. Right. And she kind of stops playing there. And I was expecting a flashback to occur at that point. Me
too.
And they didn't do it, which I found interesting. But as you mentioned, I think the pacing in this episode is really great. So I don't think it necessarily detracts from it. But I was hoping that we would get more.
There is something interesting about that moment. There's this resonating tone that happens, not from the guitar, from the score. It's almost like a sound effect that would make you think as an audience that they are going to go into a flashback. They do not. They restrain themselves. She goes into a flashback, and that's what's cool. Her brain went there. And so this is the turning point for me. This episode started much like the last episode. I complained about how Ellie is not being mature enough. Dina is not mature enough on this journey. They're not thinking about the, eye on the prize. They're here for revenge. It's a hate-filled journey. And I felt that this was problematic. The thing is that moment when she starts playing the guitar and she stops playing it, that to me was a turning point moment where she realizes, now I got to get serious. And what am I doing? And you could see it on her face because she's doing the flashback herself. She's imagining the situation. It's a really neat way to kind of begin the episode from the perspective, at least of our characters, the characters that we've been following. But the actual episode starts with a flashback. Not a flashback, sorry, a scene with the wolves talking about spores, which is another huge thing that they're introducing here that was in the game from the start. That's, again, the symmetricality is kind of where I'm talking about. They start the episode with the spores. This is what I'm talking about in terms of symmetricality, I should say. But they start the episode with the spores and the impact of discovering them for the first time for the wolves. And then they end it with the spores and showing us how Ellie is not infected because she's immune, and how that might play into the story later. It's that aspect of the story is really neat. And then that goes into the scene basically where she's on the guitar, and then ends with a sequence where they actually finally go to that flashback with Joel that we didn't get to see in that scene. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of it being symmetrically paced. I'm like, wow, it's kind of crazy when you think of it as a whole. It's honestly a lot better than when I was at about the halfway point. I thought, this is fine, this episode. But as soon as they get to the Seraphites, I think scars is a bad term, Adrian. I'm not sure you should use that.
It's a racial
derogatory
slur almost.
yeah. When they see the Seraphites doing that, terrible thing to that man, there's like awesome. That's like the point where I'm like, okay, this episode's going a way I didn't expect. This episode, it does so much world building, and yet there's so many action sequences, and yet so much emotionality built into it that it's kind of overwhelming. And it's literally the shortest episode in season 2. How the hell do they pack that? It didn't feel rushed at all. It's remarkable. I'm quite impressed. Anyway, I'll throw it to you because I've gone through a lot. I was kind of making the point of the symmetricality for a bit there, but that was kind of my highlight. Is the whole episode's great, I think.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there. For me, though, again, since you planted that seed about Ellie not being fully mature, I couldn't get rid of it. I do agree with you when she's playing the guitar. There's that moment where she puts it down, and then there's this look on her face. Yeah, she wants to get serious, but how the rest of the episode continues to play out until the end, she is, again, happy-go-lucky. And I like what the show's doing a lot with Dina as a character. They're making her much more of a focus, oddly enough. And she's almost taking that like main character role, which is a little bit weird. She's the one that is angry. She's the one that's showing way more emotion. And I find it odd because this is Ellie's revenge quest first.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get that out of my head. And like my fiance agrees as well. Like she was sitting there and she's like, I like Dina too, but it's weird that Ellie isn't as like, I got to do this. So when we get
she
to
should
the
be
end
the
of
driving force.
Exactly. And so when we get to the end of the episode where she goes, last second, Jesse shows up, takes Dina because she gets shot in the leg. Again, I'm kind of jumping ahead here.
No
and
worries.
She goes to the hospital to find Nora. It not necessarily seemed out of place, but it's like you don't have the drive from before. You go there, and then an amazing chase sequence happens. It feels like it's ripped out of the game again. The red lighting again is fantastic, and
they did it again.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. And she's like talking to Nora, like, "Tell me where Abby is." And when Bella like kind of kneels down and gets to her eye level, and the camera goes to her face, I was kind of like, "Oh my god, like this is brilliant!" Like Bella's performance here is amazing. Her eyes are dead. Like it literally looks like there's nothing behind there, and it's creepy. And she then starts bashing the shit out of Nora. I'm like, I fucking love this. But the lead up to that moment is almost like, again, it seems like such a quick shift, like a mental shift in Ellie's brain.
I wonder, though, if it's not a mental shift, like a quick shift, and more so that she's keeping her cards close to her vest. Because she's not, when she's with Dina, she's like a different person. She's almost like, it's like, I wonder if they're trying to go that direction and that Dina brings out the best in her. But when she's alone now, when she finally gets to go off on her own and when she's in action mode, she realizes why she's here in a bigger way. Because she sees in the forest, literally the place they're meant to go, the hospital. And she's like, oh, I could turn back, but I don't, because this is exactly why I'm here. There's nothing to hold me back. Because even in that moment where Dina and her are talking, when they're about to go into the building or they're on their way there, and they're talking about how, it was on their way there. Regardless of that, they're talking about how maybe Dina should go back. She's like thinking about Dina and she's not thinking about revenge. But I can get that because there is an emotional, like you have this connection now that you didn't think you had before you even started this journey. So I can get it a little bit. I'm kind of getting on side with this concept that she's a complex person, and that the problem is we haven't seen as much of the hatred. But the moment where she's playing the guitar and stops, I thought was really quite neat because she's again alone, not with Dina this time. She has no reason to play the guitar. She's just filled with like this like. No, this is nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to sing Pearl Jam. I want to go after who I want to go after. Dina interrupts her, but not really because she already put the guitar down. And then she's like, okay, let's get down to business, Ellie says. So I thought that was kind of a neat because there's like a turning point aspect a little bit. You're right, though. It is still a little weird and jarring because it seems like she switches quite a bit. Here's what I'll say, though, again, about the symmetricality. You're talking about the Nora scene in the red light. Really neat. See, here's something cool. So that last episode, the episode you really liked, episode 4. There's a guitar scene, right? And there's this beautiful moment, and they have this beautiful moment. She's playing the guitar, and there's like, it's a lovely moment. In this episode, they flip it. They're like, it's not lovely. In her mind, she's like, this isn't as lovely as I thought. She flips it. And then later on in this episode, there's a red light scene. And instead of being out of control like they were in the last episode, she's completely in control in the most fantastical way possible because she has immunity. So I feel like they planned that for sure because they did those two. I was like, they're going to do a guitar scene again, and then they didn't. They're like, oh, flip it on its head, and then they did the same thing with the red light scene. Like they're going to do a red light scene again, and then they're like, no, we're not doing it. Actually, we're going to flip it and show you how they're not being chased by like a horde. She's literally the horde herself, which is like she's the evil in a weird way. So I don't know. I think that I don't know. There's a brilliance of this episode that I'm like, the more I thought about it after it ended, the more I was like, wow, this was quite well written and quite well like directed. It's great. And the production design, as we discussed, is great. But yeah, pretty cool. Sorry, I'll throw it back to you.
No. Like, yeah, I think you're making solid points, dude. And again, I agree with what you're saying there. And I think like what I gotta just eventually wrap my head around is that this version of Ellie is far more emotionally immature and she's having a schoolgirl crush.
Yes. That's a good point. she's also kind of treated like an idiot, which is kind of strange. But then she kind
Yeah.
of spins it, and then she's not really that stupid when she's somehow sneaks into the hospital. They just treat her like that because that's the perception of who she is, which is interesting. But yeah, the schoolgirl crush thing is interesting too. She's just kind of like wrapped around by that, or like pulled in.
And yeah, it just seems like kind of unique in that sort of way, and I just gotta kind of accept that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is that sort of, yeah, like she seems incompetent in the show. And again, like I have a tougher time believing that she's able to go on this quest. And again, you brought this up last week, and I just feel like it kind of, even the characters are surrounding her think that. Like even when Jesse shows up and they talk, is like, I found the map of you guys triangulating. And then Ellie's like, oh yeah, that was Dina. He's like, I know, like I obviously it wasn't you. Like you're a dumbass. Like essentially is how it came across, right? So yeah, I don't know. She is small in stature. She's like an underdog. And it's, I guess they're trying to build it up more of an underdog story, not in a positive way, but more in like a revenge quest way.
Maybe.
So again, I gotta just
kind of finding
that.
herself though on a confidence level, which is interesting that she didn't necessarily have maybe until now. She hasn't found herself in the 5 years since we've seen her from season 1. It seems like that is something I'm kind of willing to accept. She's not there mentally. She's not ready. And then she's becoming ready in the moment, again, in the red light. That's the kind of the crazy thing, is like this episode is kind of showing how she's developing as a person, kind of being consumed by the rage in a bigger way. Potentially. We'll see how it goes. I mean, maybe episode 6 won't be as much of a turn. Maybe they'll go back and make her stupid again. But the idea is that they think she's stupid, and she's kind of perceiving herself as dumb. Even the moments where they're doing triangulation, she's like doesn't want to participate because she's not willing to. But maybe that's just the perception that people have of her, and she's accepting it. But in reality, that's not really true. And I think that's kind of a neat aspect that I'm kind of interpreting here. But we'll see how it goes again in the next couple episodes.
I guess we can make the argument that, like, yeah, she's gaining more confidence and she's finding herself as this season is progressing. But again, I hate to always bring up the video game, but again, this is based on a video game. There is just like a level of like, she has drive, she has confidence in the game already. She's capable of doing 100%. This mission. And I feel
she's the driving force.
Exactly. And they're really trying to hammer home the point here is she might not be capable. Like, and again, it really, they highlight this when they're going through the long building that Dina finds on the map, and there's one stalker there. And then all of a sudden, 3 stalkers there. And it's like
good scene too.
Amazing. It was cool. That it was terrifying because just the way when they look over that crate or whatever, and you see the one stalker standing on top of like whatever. And you're like, oh man, that's creepy. And then they're like, okay, cool. It's a smart one. We can take this one out. Like we'll trick it. And then they look up and there's like 2 more standing there. It's like, oh my God. And there's this level of fear, and then more and more and more show up. But there's that scene's really great. But again, they would have been fucked if it wasn't for Jesse showing up right on time.
Yeah.
And
they're so out of their depth, which is, I think, something that they're writing into the show. It's not like it was an accident. Whereas in the game, obviously not the case. So that it's like, she almost finds herself differently in the games, right? Like she doesn't find herself in this way. So there's an element of like, she doesn't know who she is. Yeah. And like, I think also if you look at the intro sequence of the show and how they kind of remove the Joel figure in the fungus, like there was 2 figures in season 1 and then becomes 1 after season 2. I think that's the idea, is like she is alone now and she's got to make it on her own. Whereas Joel and Ellie were kind of, even for the audience, were like the tent poles that held the show up together. The question is, can Ellie hold it up on her own? And she hasn't so far, to be fair. But now that moment in this episode, again, it's like a turning point as well. Even more specific turning point is that moment with the scars where she has a choice to go back to Dina and Jesse, or she's got the choice to go to the hospital, and she chooses to go towards danger. instead of the other direction, which is a very bold choice. And she somehow sneaks in a very smart way, as opposed to just going guns a-blazing and try to take them all out on that front line as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's cool that they do that, but again, I have a tough time almost believing it, unfortunately. Like, because she's been so incompetent. Yeah, like she's been so incompetent up until this point, even literally like 20 minutes prior, like, and it's just like, it just seems a little out of place, and that's kind of my major issue with it. But once she's in, it's cool. It's awesome. And I'm in it. And again, I believe Bella's performance. I just genuinely think, and I feel bad for saying this because I think Craig Mazin did like a phenomenal job in season 1. I never watched Chernobyl, but I know everyone that has like agreed that he's a good writer. I think he's struggling to adapt this in a way that is even remotely as impactful as the video game. And there's I almost feel like there's a level of pretentiousness in his writing, and like he's writing things for a dumber audience throughout the season, but then sometimes makes things so vague, and I feel like he's trying to make us assume people's thoughts, and I just have a tough I just don't think he's executing on this as well as he did on the first season. And as much as I did really like this episode, like I am at the point of like, this season is significantly worse than the first season.
Interesting.
And it's funny of me kind of getting to this point, episode 5, even though I really, really liked this episode. I just think now that I'm looking at it as a whole, I just think there's no doubt about it. We got 2 episodes left. I'm very confident this next episode is going to probably be fantastic, because if I'm correct, it's Neil Druckmann is writing it as well.
He's directing it as well. So it's Neil Druckmann, Hallie Gross, who's also a writer on, I'm pretty sure, Intergalactic. She's in Intergalactic as an actor, I'm fairly certain.
Oh,
and it's Craig Mazin writing it as well. So it's like a 3-person team, and that's the last episode is the same way. Neil Druckmann, Hallie Gross, and Craig Mazin. But I think the biggest thing is that Neil Druckmann's directing episode 6, which I think is going to be interesting, because I don't remember which one he directed. Maybe it was episode 2 for the first season already. Yeah. He did direct either 1 or 2 episodes first season. Oh, I have it right here. Why don't I just look? He directed episode 2. Yeah. Okay. So it's episode 2 was Neil Druckmann, who, if you don't know this, if you're listening to this episode, Neil Druckmann is the creator of the games. Sorry, I should have said that. So that's a pretty interesting thing. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, the 3-person team with episode 6 and 7 for writing, I'm curious about that, because it's like, I feel like shit's gonna go down if that's the case.
Yeah, I think
so.
I think I know what the next episode, maybe not in its entirety, is going to be about, but it's going to definitely be a flashback, obviously, because they end the episode with Pedro Pascal coming back, right? And he like knocks on the door. Ellie's in bed. She wakes up, and he says, "Hey, kiddo," and that was such a powerful scene. Again, there's my freaking issue with this season is that the highs are so high, but I think there's just too many lows, and it's driving me insane, because I want to love this. There are moments that I am so in love with this show, and then I just don't. I'm just critical of other pieces of it, and I can't get to that point that I got when. I mean, in the first season, again, I think any of the changes they made benefited actually how the story played out, and again, the additional context that they gave to certain characters and all of that. I thought it was masterfully done. I just think, this season is kind of missing on that, which bums me out.
It's neat. Like, if they go into the flashback as like a full episode, as an example, it could be a reset as well on your perception. We could see something really neat with the way it turns itself around, because it's kind of it's not exactly an even show, even for me. You obviously definitely agree. You didn't think it's a very even, like the second season, there's been highs and lows, but a lot of lows for you. So I'm curious to see if they can turn it around, and they can maybe turn around the perception, because she's going to go, if it's a flashback sequence largely, then we can kind of see where Ellie's mind is at, could be really unique. But yeah, just ending it on a flashback is such a unique way to end it. And end an episode. I'm just like, it's so bold. I don't know. I really like this episode. I think it might be my favorite one of the season, actually. I really like episode 1, to be fair. I just thought that the way it was crafted was great, but this is really well built, I think, for this episode 5. But yeah, okay.
It's funny because
Oh,
Because
sorry.
like no, it's funny because I like this might be my favorite episode too. It's a toss up right between this week and last week, but for whatever reason, again, I'm gonna just blame you, dude. It's your fault. I just can't get rid of this one feeling throughout this episode that just like kind of was nagging at me. And again, I think like the writing.
To be fair to you,
suffers.
it nagged at me in the beginning, but as it went on, I'm like, I can kind of see where they're going with this. She is immature. She doesn't know who she is, and that's the whole idea. Like this is the last episode was like, really, she doesn't know why she's here at all. She's like on a road trip with her best friend. It's like, come on, like you got to get real here. But this one is like she was on a road trip with her best friend, but then she gets a reality check when she's playing the song, and then she gets a bigger reality check when they're going into a group of infected that's crazy. There's an ebb and flow of this episode, as I mentioned earlier, like this like action sequence to emotional moment to like big reveal, like Jesse, there's big reveal with the spores. Like these are crazy, like momentous world building moments. And the amount of different things we see, it's crazy. The wolves, the spores, the infected, the amount of stalkers is crazy. Like I don't know if I said the scars already, but the Seraphites with their crazy murderous shit, even just those images from the game that are again translated here with the torches in the forest with this person hanging. The whistles, exactly. It's just so brilliantly built. And then they get to the hospital, and the hospital sequence is like, whoa, that's exactly like the game. And then the corner Nora, and I think that Tati Gabrielle's performance is great. And then they chase Tati Gabrielle into a spore-infested area. They turn on the red light again, similar to, I believe that sequence is very similar to the game as well. Yep. My memory's a bit fuzzy. But then there's that moment with torture, and then they go into a flashback. Like, what? How did you fit this into 47 minutes? I don't know. Chef's kiss for me. I really did like it. But anyway.
But again, what we're like hammering home the point again is the best scenes of this episode, the best scenes of this season are the scenes that are stripped right out of the game, or scenes that are not in the game entirely at all and are adding additional, additional context and viewpoints to the overarching world. So
I mean, I think the spores introduction is really cool. I think showing off like Leon, like oh, there's a guy named Leon, and then showing Leon being a sport, like literally at ground zero for sport. It's just like not really ground zero anymore, ground one, or I don't know what it is at that point, because he obviously gets infected by spores. But that's not in the game because obviously spores existed prior to even The Last of Us Part 1. But yeah, I just think that even translating and adapting like this in such a truthful way, or such a faithful way, I should say, is also kind of masterful on its own right. And that's kind of what you want out of an adaptation, to, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're saying that it goes off the beaten path in ways you don't want while also adapting it faithfully. So that's kind of the issue, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do our scores and then get out of here. I'll give you the first shot if you'd like.
I give this another 4 out of 5, my friend. Another 4 out of 5.
Nice. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. As I said, I believe that it's probably my favorite episode. The more I think about it, the more I like it. So 4.5 plus 4 is 9. No, sorry, 8.5 out of 10.
Dude.
I don't know how to add. 8.5 out of 10 potatoes, as you say.
Yes.
But yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining me, Adrian. It was a pleasure, as always. And thank you, audience, for joining us. Goodbye.
Take care.